knows what he got up to. Everybody knows that Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. But if he had realized his vision of America, there wouldn't have been a single slave in the country. When Jefferson was drafting the Declaration of Independence, there was a section that was basically voted down by other people. Let's talk about that.
There was a very important paragraph that was struck out, and that was about the slave trade. Jefferson wanted the slave trade to be abolished, and he inserted that into the Declaration.
And there were people in the South and people in the North uniformly against this idea.
Exactly. And so he really adopts this sort of treading water, if you will, social experiment plan that he's going to execute on his own property. So Monticello, this 5,000-acre plantation, he's going to try and reform slavery. He's going to try and make it a little bit better than what it is elsewhere. And hopefully other people will follow.
How can a guy who stated that all men are created equal have slaves? Straighten me out on all of this, because that is a sticking point that a lot of people have with Thomas Jefferson, what looks like hypocrisy.
There's no excuse for Jefferson having owned 607 people in bondage. But I think we need to separate what we think the Declaration means and what Jefferson thought the Declaration meant. Even though we concentrate on the second paragraph, all men are created equal, Jefferson was most interested in the first sentence, in which he's creating an American people. But that is really a white American people. He did not imagine, and none of his peers did either, a biracial society, because he conceived of slaves as being an African nation held against their will in bondage. He believed the only solution was essentially to send them back to what he thought was their homeland, which was Africa.
I had no idea how incredibly dynamic and complex all of this is. His great emancipation being predicated upon a simultaneous freeing of every slave, of every farm and plantation all over America. It's a bit much to ask. When was this great emancipation to come? Because he didn't do it in his lifetime.
And that's another sticking point for a lot of people, I think, that he never actually freed his slaves. But Jefferson believed that all slave owners, not just himself, would have to agree to free slaves together.
Is it not a way to kick the can down the road and say, boy, I sure hate slavery, and as soon as everyone else comes on board, we can sustain this with our own whiteness, and they're all going to go to that magical place, and everything will end up really fine. But until then, I've got what I've got, and I do what I do.
Exactly.
I hate to use this word, but it's the only word that comes to mind. Jefferson's idea, to me, is insidious. He only wants them gone so he can get back to this peaceful, homogenous nation, which to me is as boring as watching paint dry.
What we can't ignore is Jefferson's visceral fear that slaves are going to rise up and overthrow white Americans, the white race, because he has that fear of what he calls race war.
I can say without any equivocation that I categorically disagree with Thomas Jefferson.
So do I.
On all of this stuff. And I love living in the America that I do now, with every possible shade, opinion, and bits of culture and flavor that we enjoy currently. So my version of America would make Thomas Jefferson go, what did you all do? You blew it. And had it gone his way, I think he would have blown it. Thomas Jefferson, by definition, he is a racist. If he was able to be alive right now and walk the streets of New York City, I think his head might explode. What you don't know about the Founding Fathers goes far beyond paintings and monuments. They gave us quite a bit of the America that we enjoy now, but they didn't dream it up all by themselves.